What happens when the hottest league in sports almost shuts itself down? Right as it's finally blowing up. That's not a hypothetical. It nearly happened. For a few tense days, the WNBA's entire future balanced on the edge of a pen stroke. One wrong move, and the season, the storylines, and the momentum everyone's been celebrating could have gone silent overnight. See, the league wasn't just facing a negotiation, it was staring down the possibility of a full-scale lockout. That means closed facilities, frozen paychecks, and months of build-up evaporating into headlines about chaos instead of growth. A brand new audience was just getting hooked, record numbers were tuning in, and for a second, it looked like the league might unplug itself in the middle of its biggest breakthrough yet. Then, at the last possible moment, both sides hit pause. Players and league officials agreed to a 30-day extension. 30 extra days to breathe, to bargain, to figure out if the WNBA's next chapter would be a victory lap or a reset button. Now, that might sound like a small move. Just another line in a press release. But that 30-day pause? It's not a delay. It's a mirror. It shows us exactly where power lives now in this sport, and who's finally starting to control their own narrative. Because this isn't the WNBA of 5 years ago. This is a league that just broke records in attendance, sold out arenas that used to echo, and produced stars who can move culture overnight. Players aren't just athletes anymore. They're walking brands, businesswomen, and CEOs of their own empires. And that means the balance of power, for the first time in league history, is shifting. When a league that's finally found its rhythm suddenly hesitates, you have to ask, what's really going on behind the scenes? What conversations are too sensitive for the microphones? What demands have reached the breaking point? Because make no mistake, the 30-day extension didn't fix the tension. It just delayed the explosion. The clock is still ticking. And every tick echoes louder as November 30th gets closer. This is the story of how a single decision, made behind closed doors, could decide the future of women's basketball for the next decade. Picture this. The players are ready, the fans are locked in, the sponsors are warming up, and suddenly, silence. The kind of silence that makes your stomach drop. That was the reality just days before the extension was announced. The WNBA was standing inches from a lockout, the kind of event that doesn't just pause a season, it freezes an entire movement. For context, a lockout means everything stops. No games, no practices, no media tours, no jersey drops. The lights go off, and the league that's finally finding its rhythm just stops breathing. That's not just bad optics, it's economic chaos. The audience that's finally starting to invest emotionally, financially, and socially in women's basketball suddenly gets told, come back later. But in the world of sports entertainment, later can quickly become never. And that's what made this situation so fragile. For once, the momentum was undeniable. Ratings were climbing. Merch sales were up. The buzz was louder than ever. Stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese were pulling new fans into the fold, brands were doubling down on partnerships, and the WNBA was being talked about in the same cultural breath as the NBA, the NFL, and even global soccer. The league wasn't crawling anymore. It was sprinting. So when reports surfaced that the players' union and the league were in a standoff over a new collective bargaining agreement, the reaction was instant. Social media lit up, analysts scrambled for clarity, and fans flooded timelines with one question. Are we really doing this now? Because the truth is, nobody wins in a lockout. Players lose income. The league loses momentum. Fans lose faith. And sponsors, well, they start calling their lawyers. A lockout would have been like pulling the plug on a machine that just started humming at full speed. And when you're trying to build trust, consistency, and attention, you can't afford even one bad beat. That's why the 30-day extension hit like a breath of oxygen. It wasn't a celebration. It was a sigh of relief. Like catching a glass that's about to shatter. The league and the players bought themselves time. Not much, but enough to think, to plan, to make sure the next move wasn't a self-inflicted wound. This wasn't a random lucky break either. It was strategy. Someone, somewhere, realized that pressing pause is better than pressing restart. The WNBA can't risk starting from zero again, not when it's finally scaling up in real time. But let's be clear, the lockout wasn't just avoided by accident. It was dodged because both sides understood the stakes. And while the league's fans exhaled, everyone inside those boardrooms started preparing for what comes next. The negotiation that could redefine everything from player pay to league priorities. The close call wasn't just about survival. It was a reminder. The WNBA is no longer the quiet underdog. It's a product in demand, a brand on fire, and that means every decision now carries real weight. Because once you get this close to losing it all, you start to realize what you actually have. 5 years ago, a WNBA negotiation like this would have been predictable. The league held the cards, the players followed the playbook, and the final deal was about survival, not leverage. But today, the game has changed, and it's the players who are holding the pen. The phrase everyone's been throwing around lately is player empowerment. But that doesn't even scratch the surface. What's happening right now is a structural shift in power. One that's been building quietly, season after season, as athletes learn to turn their influence into independence. See, this new generation of players isn't waiting around for validation. They've built audiences, brands, and businesses that exist beyond the court. They don't just show up for practice. They show up on TikTok, Instagram, and in boardrooms. They negotiate their own sponsorships, launch fashion lines, host podcasts, and run youth academies. Every one of those side hustles isn't just income, it's insurance. Insurance against being silenced, underpaid, or forgotten. When your influence isn't chained to your paycheck, you negotiate from power, not pressure. And that's the biggest change in this entire standoff. These athletes don't need to beg for the microphone anymore. They are the microphone. Just look at what happens when someone like Caitlin Clark posts a single clip. Millions of impressions. Dozens of news headlines. Entire marketing campaigns built around a single highlight. That kind of reach used to belong only to the league's official channels. Now, the players are the media. They drive the narrative, they set the trends, and they move markets by simply showing up. And the league knows it. The executives sitting across the table aren't just negotiating with athletes. They're negotiating with brands, audiences, and platforms all at once. Each player brings more than stats. They bring visibility. They bring measurable value. It's why this current negotiation feels different. The WNBA can't just rely on the old structure anymore. Players have receipts, they have data, and they have proof of their own market power. The message is clear: we built this buzz. We keep the lights on. So we deserve to decide how bright they shine. Even the tone of the coverage has changed. When media outlets talk about the WNBA now, they're not talking about a niche league. They're talking about a growing entertainment force with the cultural reach of any major sport. Every major outlet from ESPN to Forbes is covering the story not as a side note, but as a serious business narrative. That shift didn't happen because of corporate generosity. It happened because the players demanded visibility and backed it up with results. When attendance skyrockets, when highlights dominate social feeds, when merchandise sells out, those are player-driven outcomes. And the players know it. That's why this 30-day window feels less like an extension and more like a showdown. The league and the players both understand the power dynamic has flipped, and neither side can afford to blink. The athletes know their worth, the fans are behind them, and the sponsors are watching closely. The old WNBA model was top-down. The new one, it's built from the ground up. Players are the foundation, and this negotiation will decide just how strong that foundation really is. Every era in sports has a moment that flips the narrative, a single spark that makes the rest of the world finally look up and say, "Wait, this is real." For the WNBA, that spark has a name: Caitlin Clark. When Clark made the jump to the pros, she didn't just enter the league, she detonated it. Ticket prices doubled overnight. Merchandise sold out. Ratings broke records that stood for decades. Suddenly, every sports network, every podcast, every timeline was echoing the same name. And behind the hype was something bigger: a recalibration of value. See, Caitlin didn't just bring fans, she brought influence. The kind that corporations can't buy and the kind leagues can't manufacture. Her presence turned the WNBA into a trending topic, not for a weekend, but for months. She became a walking algorithm. Every camera followed her, every tweet about her went viral, and every game she touched turned into a national event. And that kind of gravitational pull, it changes everything about how negotiations like this happen. Because when one player can move markets, it forces the league to rethink what value really means. The numbers on the balance sheet aren't abstract anymore. They have faces, followings, and hashtags attached to them. What Clark did was prove, in real time, that women's basketball isn't a niche, it's a business waiting to explode. Her highlights crossed over into mainstream culture, showing up on ESPN, TikTok, and even late-night shows. The WNBA didn't have to chase attention this time. Attention chased them. Executives noticed. Sponsors noticed. But most importantly, players noticed. For years, they'd been told the market wasn't big enough. That there wasn't enough audience interest to justify major pay increases or expanded travel standards. Then Clark steps in, and the numbers tell a different story. Record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, and a new generation of fans who treat WNBA stars like celebrities. That's not just momentum, it's evidence. The kind you bring into a boardroom when someone tries to undervalue your worth. And while Clark's influence is undeniable, the smartest part of her impact is what it represents. It's not about one player, it's about what she symbolizes. She's proof that the right platform, the right storytelling, and the right visibility can change an entire ecosystem. When one star rises that fast, it drags the whole league upward. But it also adds pressure. Because once fans and sponsors taste that level of excitement, they expect it to continue. That means better production, better marketing, better player treatment. You can't sell out arenas and then send your stars on commercial flights the next day. You can't talk about growth while players are still sharing hotel rooms or waiting hours for charter planes. The optics don't match the moment. Caitlyn's impact made those inconsistencies impossible to ignore. Every time she steps onto the court, the cameras come with her, and the league's flaws are caught in the same frame as its highlights. That spotlight can build you, but it can also expose you. And that's exactly why this negotiation matters so much. The WNBA has to decide if it's going to rise to meet its stars, or keep asking them to play small while the world watches. Because the Caitlin Clark era isn't coming. It's already here. And the question isn't whether she'll change the game. She already did. The question is whether the league can keep up. If Caitlin Clark is the spark that drew the spotlight, Angel Reese is the flame that keeps it burning. Where Clark represents visibility, Reese embodies ownership. Her story isn't just about performance, it's about power, presentation, and perception. She doesn't wait for the league to build her brand. She is the brand. Angel Reese didn't just arrive on the scene, she stormed it. From her unapologetic confidence on the court to her savvy control off it, she's redefining what it means to be a professional athlete in the modern era. Every appearance, every quote, every partnership is deliberate. She's not just playing the game, she's shaping the business around it. When news broke that Reese trademarked her nickname, Bayou Barbie, it wasn't a flex, it was a blueprint. That move said everything without her having to explain a thing. She's protecting her image, owning her narrative, and ensuring that when her name moves money, she's the one cashing the check. It's not arrogance, it's architecture. She's building her empire brick by brick, and other players are taking notes. This is the new athlete mindset. Gone are the days when being marketable meant staying quiet and playing nice. Now, authenticity sells. Personality sells. Control sells. Angel understands that better than most. She's built her brand not on perfection, but on presence. People watch her because she's real, unfiltered, and bold enough to challenge the status quo. That authenticity has turned into leverage. Sponsors aren't just investing in stats, they're investing in stories. And Angel's story is magnetic. A black woman from LSU who turned a championship run into a business case study. She became proof that success in the women's game can be monetized, celebrated, and owned, without compromise. And that's where this connects directly to the WNBA's current battle. Because athletes like Reese are expanding what it means to be valuable. It's not just about performance, it's about presence. When players are pulling millions of views online and generating as much brand engagement as male athletes in top leagues, you can't argue that the market isn't ready. The market's been ready. It's the system that's lagging behind. Reese represents that next phase of evolution. She's not waiting for the league to elevate her. She's elevating herself and, in doing so, raising the ceiling for everyone else. That kind of independence rewires the power dynamics in every contract negotiation. When players no longer depend solely on league paychecks, they can negotiate without fear. They can speak up about travel conditions, health benefits, maternity protections, or profit sharing without worrying that their careers are on the line. Because they've already built a financial safety net from their influence. And the ripple effect is massive. Every time a player secures a major brand deal or launches her own platform, it forces the league to adapt. The WNBA isn't negotiating with just a players' union anymore. It's negotiating with a room full of entrepreneurs. Athletes who understand audience data, engagement metrics, and brand value as well as their agents do. That's a new kind of leverage, one that corporate playbooks were never written to handle. Angel Reese and others like her are teaching a generation that you don't have to wait for permission to profit from your worth. You build it, you brand it, and you own it. The question for the WNBA now is whether it's ready to operate at the same speed as the players driving its future. Because this is the brand era. Players are no longer just athletes. They're ecosystems. And if the league doesn't move fast enough, it risks being left behind by the very stars that made it shine. Behind the cameras, behind the smiling press releases, there's a room where the real WNBA story is unfolding. A room where every word, every comma, and every number carries weight. Because what's being negotiated right now isn't just a contract, it's the blueprint for the league's future. Inside those walls, it's not about hype or hashtags anymore. It's about structure. It's about who controls what, who earns what, and who sacrifices what. This is where slogans stop and systems start. At the core of it all is the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA, the document that governs how every single player in the league lives and works. Salaries, bonuses, travel standards, maternity protections, media obligations, healthcare, equity programs, it's all in there. Every detail, from how far a player can travel on a charter flight to how much revenue she gets from jersey sales, lives inside that text. And right now, that text is being rewritten. Both sides are fighting for the same thing, progress, but they define that word very differently. The league wants stability, sustainability, and growth that doesn't outpace its financial base. The players want transparency, fairness, and a seat at the table where the decisions are made. Somewhere between those two visions lies the deal everyone's waiting for. Sources close to the discussions say the players' priorities go far beyond salary. They want long-term respect, not just in paychecks but in policy. They're asking for improved travel standards after years of controversy over commercial flights and grueling back-to-back schedules. They want stronger maternity leave policies that protect athletes who choose family without losing career momentum. They're pushing for more equitable revenue sharing, because when the product thrives, everyone involved should rise with it. On the league side, leadership is cautious. They're looking at budgets, broadcast deals, and sponsorship commitments that are still growing but not yet fully matured. They understand the players' demands are justified, but also fear that overextension could derail the financial stability they've worked so hard to build. It's a delicate balance. How do you expand the pie without breaking the plate that holds it? Negotiations like this aren't just battles of numbers, they're battles of ideology. And both sides know what's at stake. This isn't just about the 2025 season. It's about the next 10 years of the WNBA's identity. If they get it right, the league becomes a sustainable powerhouse. If they fumble, it risks losing the trust of players, fans, and investors all at once. The tension in that room is thick. Imagine the atmosphere: executives with spreadsheets, lawyers reading clauses out loud, union reps countering line by line, every sentence dissected and debated. The clock on the wall doesn't tick softly, it booms. Because each passing day brings them closer to the November 30th deadline. And that deadline isn't flexible. When the current agreement expires, everything freezes unless a new deal is signed. That means training camps could be delayed, off-season programs canceled, and the league's momentum stalled right when it's at its highest. So every night, as the lights go off in that conference room, the unspoken question lingers. How much time is left before optimism turns to panic? Because this isn't just a negotiation, it's a race against the clock, with the entire future of women's basketball on the line. The league is trying to prove it can evolve responsibly. The players are fighting to prove they can't be ignored. And somewhere between progress and preservation lies a deal that could change sports forever. The stakes have never been higher. And the clock keeps ticking. Every negotiation eventually crashes into one unavoidable truth. Business doesn't care about feelings, it cares about flow. And in the WNBA, the flow right now is hotter than it's ever been. Ticket sales are climbing. Merch is selling out. Broadcast numbers are finally drawing advertiser attention. For the first time, the league is expanding faster than its infrastructure can keep up. That's exactly why a lockout would have been catastrophic. You can't pause a product right when people are finally paying attention. You can't build momentum for 5 years, only to hit stop when the wave is peaking. Growth doesn't forgive hesitation, and audiences don't wait around for explanations. Think of it this way. Momentum is currency. It's the invisible energy that converts curiosity into loyalty. Once you lose it, it's almost impossible to buy back. And that's the line the WNBA was walking when that 30-day extension came through. A lockout wouldn't just hurt players, it would erase progress. The buzz, the sponsors, the mainstream coverage, it all evaporates when headlines turn negative. Imagine scrolling your feed and seeing WNBA season suspended amid labor dispute. You don't click that story twice. You move on. You watch something else. That's how quickly interest dies. And for a league still building its audience brick by brick, that's not a bruise, it's a break. See, the WNBA isn't the NBA. It doesn't have a century of brand equity to fall back on. It's still in its scaling phase, still teaching the public why it deserves their time. Every week of consistent growth matters. Every broadcast window, every highlight package, every viral clip keeps that flywheel spinning. You can't freeze the machine just as it starts humming. The business reality is simple. Continuity is king. The more games you play, the more stories you create. The more stories you create, the more money follows. The WNBA is finally in that rare moment where every piece, players, fans, sponsors, and media, is moving in sync. Disruption right now would be like pulling the plug on your own power source. That's why this 30-day pause wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It gave both sides breathing room to protect the asset they've been building, momentum. Because momentum, in modern sports, is more valuable than any endorsement deal or marketing campaign. And make no mistake, the league knows this. They've seen the charts. Social engagement up 230%. Merchandise sales through the roof. Every highlight clip going viral. That's not hype, that's data. The numbers don't lie, and they say one thing loud and clear. This is the moment to accelerate, not hesitate. If the WNBA can use this extension to lock in structural improvements, better pay transparency, improved travel conditions, and more equitable revenue sharing, it's not just saving a season, it's securing an era. That's how leagues move from promising to permanent. Because growth isn't about short-term wins, it's about stability. The NBA didn't become a global empire because of one good season. It became what it is because it built trust with fans and investors. The WNBA is on that same path, but its margin for error is razor thin. One misstep, one canceled season, one wave of bad press, and the progress of the past decade could vanish overnight. That's why this isn't just a labor story, it's a business case study. Every negotiation, every clause, every compromise contributes to a single question. Can the WNBA grow fast enough to sustain itself without breaking under its own momentum? Because right now, the league isn't just competing with other sports, it's competing with attention spans. Every second counts. Every headline matters. And in that kind of market, you can't afford silence. The WNBA's success depends on one thing above all else: keeping the story alive. So now, here we are, the 30-day countdown. The league is in motion, the clock is ticking, and every conversation happening behind closed doors is shaping the next decade of women's basketball. These next few weeks aren't just about ironing out fine print. They're about deciding what kind of league the WNBA is going to be when the spotlight finally stays on. Let's get one thing straight. This extension isn't the end of the storm, it's the calm before it. Both sides know the next 30 days will decide whether the WNBA walks into a golden era or stumbles back into uncertainty. The players aren't backing down this time. They've built audiences, personal brands, and financial independence strong enough to demand real change. The league, on the other hand, knows that meeting those demands isn't optional. It's existential. Because this is more than a contract. It's about redefining the entire structure of the sport. Over the next month, the focus will be on three core fronts: money, mobility, and meaning. Money, because compensation isn't just about base salary anymore. It's about how revenue is shared, how bonuses are distributed, and how performance is valued. Players want to see the profits from their impact, not just the praise. If a jersey sells out because of one player's name, the athlete wants a fair share of that success. They're not asking for miracles, they're asking for math. Mobility, because travel and resources shape performance. For years, players have battled exhausting schedules and commercial flights that compromise rest, safety, and health. In an era where male athletes fly private and arrive fresh, WNBA players are boarding late-night flights after back-to-back games. That contrast isn't just uncomfortable, it's unsustainable. The league has the data. It knows performance dips with poor travel standards. Upgrading logistics isn't a luxury, it's an investment in the product. Meaning, because visibility without respect is hollow. Players don't want to just grow the game, they want to define it. That means stronger maternity protections, transparent leadership decisions, and a league culture that reflects equality not just in words, but in policy. The next generation of stars isn't looking for permission. They're looking for proof that this league can evolve with them. But here's the twist. These demands aren't radical. They're practical. The WNBA's audience is expanding faster than anyone expected. Networks are calling. Sponsors are signing checks. The ecosystem is ready. All that's missing is the framework to support it. That's why these next 30 days are a test of execution. The players have the leverage. The league has the platform. Now both have to prove they can handle success without collapsing under it. If they land the right deal, this could be the start of a genuine renaissance. New teams, better pay scales, more media deals, and international recognition that puts the WNBA where it should have been years ago. The players would become not just athletes, but shareholders in the league's future. The fans would see more transparency, better access, and higher quality production that makes every game feel like an event, not an afterthought. But if talks stall again, if egos, timing, or red tape get in the way, then the risk is real. You can't pause a movement twice and expect the same level of excitement to return. Attention is fickle, and opportunity is fragile. The WNBA is standing at the edge of its biggest opportunity ever. In 30 days, it will either step forward into history, or step back into headlines about missed chances. The difference will come down to one thing: whether everyone in that negotiation room understands that the real product isn't basketball, it's belief. Belief that this league is ready to lead. What comes next isn't just about contracts, it's about legacy. And legacy, once written, doesn't get erased. November 30th isn't just another date on a calendar. It's the line between two eras. On one side is the WNBA we've known, resilient, ambitious, and constantly fighting for recognition. On the other side lies something untested, potentially revolutionary. A league that knows its worth and demands to be treated accordingly. This final stretch is where everything counts. The cameras won't capture the tension in those conference rooms, but make no mistake, it's there. Every handshake, every red line, every whispered conversation between lawyers and agents carries the weight of an entire movement. Because this isn't just about a deal, it's about direction. If they sign a new CBA that reflects the reality of what this league has become, one powered by players, driven by data, and amplified by global attention, then November 30th becomes the start of something historic. But if they miss it, the risk isn't just a lockout. The risk is losing trust. Fans have invested their time, their money, and their passion into this league. They've watched it fight for visibility, and now they're watching to see if it can fight for itself. The WNBA has momentum, yes, but momentum isn't permanent. It's earned every day. And this next month will prove whether leadership can protect it or let it slip away. Because when the final signatures hit the page, this won't just be paperwork, it'll be a statement. A declaration of whether the WNBA believes its own hype. Whether it's ready to scale beyond survival and into dominance. The truth is, women's basketball isn't waiting for the world's approval anymore. It's already capturing it. The world is watching, sponsors are investing, and young athletes everywhere are dreaming with a new kind of confidence. What happens after November 30th decides whether that dream grows or stalls. The clock is talking now. Every tick echoes through practice gyms, through social feeds, through every player who's ever felt overlooked. Every second is pressure. Every second is potential. And when that buzzer sounds, when November 30th arrives, the result will define a generation. Golden era or growing pains. Progress or pause. Evolution or déjà vu. But here's the beautiful part. No matter how this ends, one thing is clear. The WNBA has already proven it belongs. The question now isn't if it will grow, it's how fast it can catch up to its own potential. So as the league races toward that deadline, remember this moment. Because one day people will look back and realize this was the turning point, the 30 days that shaped everything that came after. And for those of you watching, analyzing, and debating every twist in this story, don't just sit on the sidelines. Be part of it. The more eyes, voices, and conversations around this league, the stronger it becomes. If you've made it this far, you're not just a viewer, you're part of the movement. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you want to stay ahead of the next update, like this video to push it further into the algorithm so more people hear the story, and drop a comment below. Tell me what you think the WNBA's next move should be. Because this story isn't over. It's just getting louder. And when that final deal drops, you'll want to be here first. Because history doesn't wait, and neither should you.